So I actually started off as a biomedical engineer and then went into rainforest protection, and still proud to say we're protecting about 1 million hectares in Aceh, Indonesia. And then the co-working entry, I guess for me, is I started a business called Two Space that turned restaurants into co-working spaces, which is how I met a lot of people here today. Today I'm actually the head of Flex at JLL for about 6 years. So we help investors who want to do co-working on their own, build and design and operate their own spaces. So there's a few examples there. And this is kind of off the trend of management agreements and everything. And that's why today I wanted to talk to you about where you could get that 10% outside of your own NLA, and potentially by collaborating with landlords. Because all the commercial assets out there see co-work and flex as something they can lean on to fill their buildings and protect their valuations. So the next few slides is going to kind of show different locations in the building, and I'm going to speak to how you can make money there in a very frank manner. And so the orange is you're doing your thing. And don't be intimidated by this big building thinking this is only for the larger operators who can deal with 20,000 square meter assets. I just did something in Asia, so I was in square foot for a sec. But it could also be for the smaller ones with not as many floors, right? Because if you think about it, all these owners are trying to figure out how do we get all the other tenants in the building back into the office? And they've kind of got this Trojan horse of you who's got people on site who are running events, serving all these things that they can tap into. So the important one that I missed was the ground floor. That's really great because there's actually money in the bank that landlords are handing out to concierge services and activation. Maybe you can tap into that. Spec suites, this is the big one. If you listen to anything today, it's this. Even though spec suites could be seen as competition, I think it's an opportunity for us. So there was a statistic that was floating around about a few years ago, pre-COVID, saying 30% of office was going to be flexible by 2030 or whatever. It was a JLL stat. Out of that 30%, 25% was spec suite and 5% was co-working. And that's not to scare you, that's actually to go, that's a good thing, right? Because how the hell are all these landlords going to differentiate their spec suites? Well, it's through you guys and girls and everyone here. Because if you can actually, and what I'm trying to call it is spec suites with a service, figure out a way how to offer, well, we've got staff here, we've got all these things, come up with a list with the owner, say we can serve these spec suites, but pay me under a different arrangement to your lease or your management agreement. I think there's a huge opportunity there because everyone's figuring out, okay, we got our spec suites, we're going to spend a bunch of money on the fit out, how are we going to differentiate from the building downstairs, or not downstairs, down the road, and it could be by partnering with you. And the stuff I missed there was rooftop strategy and all that kind of stuff, because if they try to activate their building and you've got a community manager and you've got a budget already and they've got a budget of another maybe 200K for their building that they don't want to waste on bringing someone else in, they can figure out a way how to carve that out, give it to you and figure it out, right? So that could be a 10%. Okay, so a really quick one. Density before the cafe rent. What you'll find is a lot of landlords are going from high space to amenity rich. If they want to partner with you, you should be getting paid for that if they force you to do it. So figure that out in your arrangement. Now cafes, word to the wise here. I think cafes are really hard. I don't think you should be looking for that extra 10% there unless you're an expert, you bring it. Because when you think about it, if you've got your cafe there, you're only dealing with the foot traffic, not the on-street stuff in the building. If you can fight for the cafe down there if you're doing it, so it's not just a cost center to deliver experience for your operation within the floor. You get on-site street traffic, you got a commercial kitchen, you can cater inside, you get the tenants, you get economies of scale there to make more money. And just really quickly, I had a thought coming over that I want to talk to, so the next 3 slides I might skip, but it still is important because we're talking about revenue, but really at the end of the day, it's profit that we're worrying about, right? So really quickly in summary, it's really hard doing this. Okay, from a fit-out perspective, we found that instead of going glass floor to ceiling, doesn't impact your acoustics or even your ability to let natural light coming into your floor plan. If you can save costs up front by going only halfway and the bottom up, do something else, that's great. Smart buildings are cool because when it comes to AI, and this is Sean's sweet spot here, imagine if there's an AI software tool which are being developed, JLL's doing one, not to plug it, because it's not my team, but essentially, imagine if you can get software that's going to help you regulate your HVAC, your lighting, everything based off occupancy, and you save costs there. So the 10% could come from a cost reduction, right, if you leverage the right software. So shameless kind of plug, but also an opportunity for you guys to the 10%. I've actually been doing this for the last 3 months, a YouTube channel around startups and co-working, because there's ways that this economy is booming. It's set to hit $1 trillion in the next 3 to 6 years. That's a Goldman Sachs stat. So as operators, is there a way that you can leverage your brand to capture attention out there to do whether it's co-working content, leverage your community, get that ad revenue, all that kind of stuff. So that was just another idea done.